Hashem, that we're able to learn every day. Schus of our learning, we should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately. Today we're going to start Daf Lamed Amud Aleph, that's 30a, and we're going to start from Amar of Chisda. Let's see how far we can get, because Shabbos we don't learn, and Sunday is Tisha B'Av, so we're also not going to learn in the morning. I'm not sure when we're going to make that up. On Monday, it's going to be 3 blot. Let's see if we can push it a little bit here. Amar of Chisda. Chisda says, Hakol Maidim, everyone agrees, Bal Anida Shemeshalem Knas. Remember what we're talking about in the Mishnah? That there was a knas, a fine, that a man, if he either raped or seduced a young girl that was 12 years old, so he has to pay a fine of 50 coins to the father. Now, there was a problem if he wouldn't be able to marry that woman because she was prohibited to him. So our Mishnah holds that he pays the fine anyway. But there were two other opinions that if the marriage was prohibited, one says that you don't pay a fine. Other one says that no, you pay the fine if the marriage is prohibited. You just don't pay the fine if you can't. Let's do it the other way. If the marriage is prohibited, you pay the fine, but you don't pay the fine if there's no marriage at all. If it's impossible to get married, like by a sister, right? It's not even considered a marriage. What were the two opinions? Reb Shimon Atimani said that if there is a marriage, you pay the fine. Reb Shimon ben Manasseh said that no, it needs to be a marriage that is acceptable to continue. Say, yeah, it has to be allowed to continue that marriage. What about by a nida? Now, by a nida, if someone rapes or seduces a girl, that's a nida. So over here, everyone agrees that you pay a knas. And the Gemara spells it out. According to the opinion of that was Shimon Atimani, that says that you have to be able to make a marriage, that it has to be able to get married. Hanami yesh b'avaya. Okay, so you can marry a woman that's a nida. It's going to be a little bit of a question on the Rambam, maybe Kedushin. I don't know. He holds the chuppah nida. You're not supposed to make the chuppah nida. That maybe I'm not sure if he holds it doesn't work, or if you're not supposed to. Lamanda Maruya Lakaima, but according to Reb Shimon ben Manasseh, he says it needs to be a marriage that you'll be able to continue, to that it's acceptable to continue. Hanami Maruya Lakaima. Well, you don't have to get remarried every time she becomes a nida, right? So that's going to be an acceptable marriage. That's the case. Then everyone's going to agree that if someone lives with a nida, he pays a knas. Okay. Now, Rashi and other Rishonim learn this next piece of Gemara, that it's a brand new piece. Remember in the Mishnah we said that if someone lives with his sister, he has to pay a fine to her father. So, and we said, 1 second, kamle b'deramine. There's kares there. Why does he have to pay a fine? You only get the higher punishment, the more severe punishment. That takes away the lesser punishment. Gemara says, lafukim Reb Nechuni ben Akana. I added all that in to make it fit with Rashi's pshat. This is coming to exclude what Reb Nechuni ben Akana says. Reb Nechuni ben Akana, I don't know when he lived, but the prayer of Anam B'Kayach we attribute to him. Anam B'Kayach is he by the Churban, around the time of the Churban of the destruction.
What's his name?
Reb Nechuni ben Akana. He was around the time of the destruction of the temple, and he wrote the Sefer Habahir, right? That's supposed to be also Reb Nechuni ben Akana. Okay, the Tanya, he's not so common, actually. The Tanya was started in a Brayso. Reb Nechini ben Akana said that if someone violates Yom Kippur, in which also that type of violation also incurred a monetary payment to someone, he's going to be exempt, just like you would be exempt on Shabbos. We'll give the example in a moment. Ma Shabbos Mischai benafshi, just like on Shabbos. Shabbos is very serious. If there's witnesses, he gets his skila, right? He gets stoned. And he's also exempt from paying. Why? When there's two punishments that need to go on a person, he only gets the more strict one. Also Yom Kippur, it's the same thing. What does it mean? It's Mischai benafshi in Yom Kippur, not skila. It's kares. So what Reb Nechini ben Akana just did is he tells us that when there's kares, there's no monetary payment along with it. That does not fit with our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said that there's a knas when someone lives with his sister. It means even though there's kares, so there's a fine on this fellow, there is a monetary payment. According to Reb Nechini ben Akana, that would not work. My time with the Reb Nechini ben Akana. What is the explanation from Nechini ben Akana? We're going to have two explanations. We're going to have Rava and Abaya. Abaya and Rava, rather. It starts off with Abaya's pshat. Amar Abaya. Abaya says that the source of Kamle b'deramine is learned from someone that lives with his daughter. It's the pasuk. The word for that is it learns it from, we'll see in the Mishnah later. Where is it? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that had to do with if there's a knas by someone that you can't marry. It says v'loi siya leisha. What does that mean? V'loi siya leisha, that he has to marry her. Doesn't mean they have to be able to marry. Doesn't have to be. It can't be prohibited to marry, right? So now we're discussing kamle b'derabminei. That's a possible option for why Reb Nechini ben Akana says it's the same. This goes like this: Amar Abaya, nemar asin b'dei adam v'nemar asin b'dei shemayim. It says the term asin. Asin means a forced or an accident. B'dei adam. Where does it mean b'dei adam? We have on the side, it says Shmais Chaf Aleph. That means when two men were fighting and they hit a woman, right, that was pregnant. So the woman doesn't die, but the baby died. So there's a payment there. And there's also a asin b'dei shemayim. What's the asin b'dei shemayim? So quotes the pasuk, at least the Torah, that commentary. I think that was written by Rabbi Yeshua Boaz, the Maser Sashas. I think he wrote the Torah also. So it's talking about when Binyamin does not go down to Egypt because Yaakov is afraid that an accident is going to happen. Now, what type of accident? Well, an accident from heaven, some mishap is going to happen. So if there was an accident, bidei adam, that means if the woman would have died, then it would be exempt from payment. So also, if there's an accident from heaven, he's also exempt from tashlumin, which means that just like if the court would carry out a punishment, he would not have to pay for the lesser punishment, right? Wouldn't have to pay the lesser punishment. So too, if there's a punishment from heaven, kares, we're learning it. It's like a gzeira shava here. It says the word asin b'dei adam. It says the word asin b'dei shemayim. Just like b'dei adam, which now we're referring to misa b'dei adam. That if the Bezdin would be carrying out both punishments, he would be exempt from the lesser one. So too, if heaven is carrying out the punishment, he'd be exempt from the lesser one by the court. We learn that from these words. 1 second. Vada Barava has a question. Mimai. Yaakov is warning his sons. The mishap, the accident that was going to happen with Binyamin was because of Tzina Mupachim. Tzina Mupachim, the Gemara is, I think, translating as cold and hot. Like he's going to get sick along the way because of traveling. Maybe it's because of a lion or thieves that are in the hands of man. I didn't know that Arya is in the hands of man, but I guess maybe it's in a cage. Right. Okay, but maybe he's referring to things that are actually in the hands of man. And then how can you tell me that that what was the pasuk? V'karo asin or penyikrena asin. Maybe an accident's going to happen. That it's going to happen from heaven, and that's teaching us that Kamle B'Ramani also applies to Karis. Maybe that was happening in the hands of man. So it says, Ata Yaakov Azhar Loy Azhar. Do you think Yaakov was only talking about one possibility? He was afraid of every possibility, including the what's going to happen in the hands of what could happen in the hands of heaven. And so therefore, that would exempt someone being punished by heaven as well from the lesser punishment. Yaakov al-Kol Eliezer, he was concerned about everything. He'd be exempt from paying. That's what we're learning from Reb Nachuni ben Akana. The question is, what's the source? We're learning it from Asin. Yeah. Gemara now says, is cold and fever in the hands of heaven. But we have a brisa, Hakol b'dei Shemayim, very famous Gemara, chutz mitzinim upachim, except for colds. Yeah, this is when your mother tells you put on a sweater. That's why everything's up to Hashem. It says no, the Gemara says it's not. It says the scientists don't say colds come from sweaters, from lack of sweaters, from germs and other things. But colds and fever are on the path of the one that stumbles. Someone that protects his soul should distance himself from them. Yeah, that's not necessarily the pshat in the pasuk. That's the way the Gemara learns the pshat. In the pasuk, there's other translations there. Maybe storm winds or tzinim upachim. Pachim maybe mean a trap. Pach nishbar anachnu nimlatnu. The Gemara is translating pach as in pecham. Pecham is like coal, like hot coals. And tzina is the Gemara is translating as cold. It's not always okay, whatever. So that's clearly the way the Gemara is learning the pasuk. So what is he saying? That this is in the hands of heaven? It's not in the hands of heaven. Get dressed warm. It's in the hands of man. The Su, and also you think the lion and the robbers are in the hands of man? Also another famous Gemara. From when the time the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, after Pisha Batal Sanhedrin, even though Sanhedrin was not nullified, was stopped functioning. Yeah, it's not exactly from the day the Beis Hamikdash was. It's probably a little before that as well, right? 40 years. Yeah, something about Sukrik. That's the Gemara in Gittin, right? So after Pisha Batal Sanhedrin, Abra Mises Leibat. Arba Mises Leibatlu. But never, even though the Sanhedrin didn't function, but the 4 types of deaths, that capital punishments that the Sanhedrin would carry out, still get carried out. What are the 4 deaths? Skila, Sreifa, Hereg, and Chenek. Right? Stoning, burning by the sword, and strangulation. It says Leibatlu. Habatlu, what do you mean? Of course, they don't carry out those punishments. Eladin arba mises leibatlu. The law, the concept of those 4 deaths have not been nullified, have not stopped. Yeah, the Sanhedrin doesn't carry it out. How does it work? So it says Mishin Eschayev Skila. It's from heaven. Mishin Eschayev Skila. Someone that was deserving of stoning. Either either he falls off a roof, God forbid. Oh wow. Yitzis, would be skila, because skila also, the stoning also started off with pushing a boulder off a roof on top of him, right? No, first they pushed him off the roof, then they pushed the boulder on top of him. Yeah. Or he gets pushed down to the ground by an animal. Mishin Sreifa, someone that's deserving of being burnt. He falls into a fire. Or he gets bitten by a snake. Mishin Hariga, someone that's deserving of being death by the sword. Either gets passed over to the government, where that's how they would kill people. I list him by malak, or robbers. Robbers. See, robbers that Yaakov was worried about is not bidei Adam; it's in the hands of heaven. Someone that's deserving of strangulation, either he drowns or he dies from srunki, which is askara, which is that type of disease, which is croup or diphtheria, could be. Yeah.
One arm base.
The Gemara says Ela Epach. Let's do it exactly the opposite. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable Gemara. The lions and the robbers, that's all in the hands of heaven. But the cold and fever, that's in the hands of himself. That's in his own hands. Okay. That the thieves are in the hands of heaven, and the cold and the fever is in the hands of himself. Yeah, it's a little counterintuitive. We think like, it's how was he able to control that? But it turns out that's a
they call it anthropomorphic weather change. What humans do is causing.
That's the pshat.
Yeah, God, lions and thieves. That's
the zoo.
Yeah, the zoo and the lions. The guy. Also.
Okay. Whatever the case is, Abaye gave us a pshat that Yaakov was referring to when he doesn't want Binyamin to go down, referring to an accident that could happen from the hands of heaven. What exactly is that accident? Robbers, and that's in the hands of heaven. And he didn't want Binyamin to have that accident. Well, it says the word over there, Asan. It says the Asan also by the hands of man, also by when two men are fighting. And we learned from this about Kamle B'derab Minay, that if there is a more severe punishment, is exempt from the lesser punishment. So that will also apply to if the more severe punishment is karis, which is in the hands of heaven. Rava Amar Taimad Reb Nechuni ben Akana Mehacha. Rava says no. The source of Reb Nechuni ben Akana comes from somewhere else. It says Vimhalim Yali Ma'amar Tzesinem Meneshahu B'Siti Mizar LaMelech V'Samti Ani Espani B'Shub B'Mishpachti V'Chrati Yisei. If the court doesn't take care of the person that brings his son to Molech, as a type of idolatry, but they would either walk him through fires or they would burn him in fire. So, yeah, they walk his son.
Oh,
yeah. So it was a type of idolatrous worship. So v'echrati, I say, it says that I will cut off his soul. It's a karis. Excision. Amra Torah, karis shali kamisa shalachem. The Torah says that my karis will replace the death penalty, capital punishment. Ma misa shalachem patim min hashlum. Well, let's take it a step further. If there would have been capital punishment from the court, then the lesser punishment of payment would not exist. So af karis shali patim min tashlumin. Also, when there's karis, when there's excision, he's also exempt from tashlumin. He's also exempt from payment. Now, the Gemara says, well, what's the difference between Abaya and Rava? It goes like this. Ma'ya kabein Rava Abaya. What's the difference between Rava and Abaya? Ikabeinaya, the difference goes like this. Zor sha'achal truma. if someone that's a non-Kohen eats truma, truma is only meant for a Kohen. Well, there's two problems here. First of all, if a zar eats truma, that food that's sanctified for the Kohen, it's consecrated. So then there's a monetary payment because it wasn't his. And there's also a death penalty from heaven that he ate that consecrated food.
It's an impure person's a zar?
No, a Kohen that would be impure was not allowed to eat it either. A zar is someone that's a stranger. Yeah.
Can you be,
So someone who's not he's a non-Kohen or a Levi. He's a Yisrael or a Levi that are not allowed to. He's a Yisrael or a Levi. I don't remember what the punishment is for if he's tummy. No, he's not a zar. So Abaya, according to Abaya said that we learn from Asen, things that are in the hands of heaven are the same as if they're in the hands of man. So just like this is a death penalty from heaven, it's just like capital punishment. If that's the case, then he's going to be pater from paying for that food that he just ate. L'Rava, but according to Rava, that says that it only applies to karis because we learned it from Melech, and it says my karis and Misa B'dei Shemayim are similar, but they're not exactly the same. In karis, it says that the children also die. Misa B'dei Shemayim not, and then one is 50 and one is 60, but in different sources they switch. So, according to Rava, he's going to be chayiv because it's not karis. The Gemara says L'Abaya pater. According to Abaya, he's going to be exempt if he eats. Truma. Okay, now we start a new sugya that's going to take us a whole page. So bear with me. Let's see how far we can get. Vamar Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda says, "Maybe Rabbi Nechani ben Akana would agree." Rabbi Nechani ben Akana was the one that told us that if there's two punishments, karis and another punishment, that's the same as if there would have been misa and another punishment, death and another. Karis is the same like death. He only gets the more strict one. He doesn't get the lesser.
So we're getting into the idea of a person having to deal with two punishments
that we only get. Yeah, then we only get that. Rabbi Nechani ben Akana says that he only gets the more strict one, even if they're not both coming from the Bezdin.
But there's some exceptions.
Yeah. So someone someone steals his friend's forbidden fats, not off him, from his animal, right? And he eats them. Well, he stole treif, basically, and he ate it. Shuchayev, he has to pay. Second, you have to pay. It's punishment of eating the chaylev is more strict, karis, than the monetary payment. Because he stole it before he ate it. So the obligation to pay came first. So you don't get, when does he get exempt from the second punishment, the lesser punishment? It's only if they came simultaneous. But here he already stole it first. Alma, what do we see? At the time that he lifted it up, he already acquired it. But when does he get the karis punishment? That's only when he eats it. So if that's the case, then we're back in trouble over here because when the zar is eating the truma, he had to steal it before he ate it. When he lifted it up to eat it, he already acquired it. The death penalty from heaven. So what did you tell me that there's a difference between Abaya and Rava? If he's going to get the monetary payment, according to Abaya, he won't. And according to Rava, he will. According to Abaya, he should also get the monetary payment because it didn't come simultaneous. The Gemara does this. It comes up with it's called a ukimta, a scenario where we can work it out that they came simultaneous. How was that? Well, someone put it into his mouth. Okay, now the Gemara has to analyze when it goes into his mouth, is he acquiring it, and when is he obligated for eating truma? It says saif kimin delase kanya. When he chewed it, he acquired it. But he's not chayiv until he swallowed it. So it's still not simultaneous. I know it's very close in time, but it's not exact. So going to tach of loyla teich beisablia. No, the friend put it on like a stick and pushed it to the back of his throat. So chaylev, yeah. So he's drinking it. Maybe no. We'll see soon about that. But heichidami. Now the Gemara analyzes this. If he can still like cough it, that make it come back to his mouth. So nihader, then he should have done that. If he didn't make it, if he's not able to because it's too deep in his throat, amai chayev. Then why is he chayev? He didn't do anything. His friend pushed it into his mouth.
Making this determination like how far within it's like cross examination, or is the guy admits it? Like how do we learn? You know,
how are we going to figure it out is another question. But first, let's get to the law, and then how do we figure out? I don't know. We'll have to put him through a. He has to eat it under a X-ray.
I didn't know eating treif was
chaylev. This is the special one. This is chaylev. Yeah.
It's not kares.
Eating chaylev is kares. Why?
Chaylev
because
is,
forbidden fats.
it's treif, no?
Yeah, but it's no. Well, treif would be.
Basar and
yeah, it could be
or something.
That's an option. That's also would not be
chicken.
kares.
That's not.
It's not shechted, or an animal that's not shechted.
But this is like chazer almost, no?
Well, even chazer is not as strict as chaylev. That's just chazer is just not kosher meat. Chaylev is more strict. Even from a kosher animal, there are parts of the animal that have to be removed.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, so now we get this like complicated case. He is able to get it out of his throat, but it would be very difficult. Now, what that means is that he's actually not considered stealing because the person put it into his throat. It already became so gross that it's in the back of his throat that it really doesn't have that sort of value. But he does have to pay for the benefit that he's getting from that he doesn't have to eat a meal. It just saved him from a snack. So he has to pay that sort of benefit, the hana that he gets from it. And that hana that he gets from it and the eating of it, that exactly is the same. Okay, so we have a case. Papa says, no, he put the liquid of truma into his mouth. Now, the same answer. That once it goes into his mouth, it's already not considered that it's something that you're stealing because it becomes gross when the liquid goes into his mouth. I'm not going to say like give it back, or something like that. So the whole issue is that he has to pay for the pleasure that he got from swallowing it, and that comes together with the prohibition of eating truma. Rav Ashi Amar Bizar Shachal Truma Mishalai. Rav Ashi says the case is like this. Not that he's stealing truma. And then the question is, but he stole it first and then he ate it later. No, there's no stealing of the truma. He's actually eating truma that he was supposed to give to the Kohen. And instead of giving it to the Kohen, he ate it. So where's the monetary payment? Vikara shirayim shel chavera. As he's eating it, he's tearing his friend's shirt, or his friend's garment of some sort. So Rav Ashi says that when we say kamle b'deramine, it doesn't have to be two prohibitions or two punishments for one action. It could be two different actions that are being performed simultaneous that will still exempt him from the lesser punishment because he's getting the more severe punishment. What's the more severe punishment here? Eating truma. And at the same time, he's damaging his friend. So he doesn't have to pay for those damages. Okay. You have three answers there. Gufa, let's go back to discuss what we learned before from an Amira. Amar Rav Chizda, Meidi Rab Nechuni ben Akana, Begain of Chelbe, Shel Chaver, Vachlo, Shuchayv, Shaparnas Chai, Begnei, Vekedem, Shevel, De Yisra Chelev. Rav Chizda said that when someone steals, that Rab Nechuni ben Akana would agree that if someone steals Chelev and then he eats it, he's going to have to pay for that Chelev, because he's already chayev from the stealing before he ate it. Okay. And let's say that this disagrees with something that Rav Avin said. Hazayrik chaitz mitchilas arba l'seif arba v'koyt shrayim balichasi is pater. Shakir tzarech hanachi. Achanami agba tzarech achili. If someone shoots an arrow on Shabbos in Rishus Harabim, now the prohibition in Rishus Harabim is that it goes 4 amas. You have to uproot it off the ground. It's to go 4 amas, and it has to land, right? So here, he shoots an arrow. Now it goes 4 amas. Okay, so he's chayav for Shabbos. Along the way, it went through his friend's shirt, his friend's garment.
It's tent.
What does it say over there? Tent?
No, I just made that up.
It's friend's tent. Yeah. So he's going to be pater. Well, 1 second. When did he tear the friend's shirt? Silk. Friend's silk. Shirayin is silk.
Sure.
When did he tear the silk? Before he was chayav for Shabbos, because it tore it along the way. But Rav Avin tells us that since the lifting up of it in order to shoot it was part of the malacha, that's the akira. So that's all considered one malacha. So too, Rav Avin would say that lifting up the food in order to eat it is all part of the eating of it. And therefore, it should all go under the same category. You're dividing it up, that he lifted it, he acquired it. No, the lifting is part of the eating, according to Rav Avin, because we see that the lifting it in order to shoot it was already part of the shooting. It was already part of the Chi of Shabbos. I don't say that he tore it before Shabbos, before he violated Shabbos. Gemara says, 1 second, Hachi Hashta. There's a big difference. Over there, I can't get it to go down until I lift it up. So that is a necessary part of making it go 4 cubits, is the lifting it up. But he can eat without lifting it up. How? He could put his face into the bowl and he could eat it like that. He never acquired it, but he still ate it. Right? Inami, another possibility is hasami baila dure le. Once he shoots the arrow, he can't get it back unless he's really quick. But hacha matzimahadale. But over here, he can put it back down. He doesn't have to put it into his mouth. So that acquisition was a full action before the eating of it. Maya kabein high lishna la high lishna. You just gave me 2 differences here. One was that you can do one without the other. You can eat it without lifting it up. And the other difference was you can put it back down. You don't have to. Over here, when he shoots it, it's too late. So
the arrow roll back.
It's when it would be released. Now it's what are we saying? Where's the akira? When he's taking it off the ground or when he's releasing it? Well, the hanach is when it lands.
Goes into the guy's chest and kills him.
Yeah, well, here it's going through this and it's landing after 4 cubits. Here we're saying that the silk is 2 cubits away. It's landing 4 cubits away. So we wanted to say that maybe it should be, according to Rav Chizda, he should be exempt because it happened first. Would not be exempt because it happened first. According to Rav Avin, we say that it's all one action. So now the Gemara says, what's the difference between these 2 answers about if it's necessary to do that, or if you can stop it? It could be nayo amar v'sakin b'shus rabim v'kar shrayim balichase. Very easy. If someone's walking in Rishus Rabim carrying a knife, while he's carrying the knife, he's tearing silk as he's walking. If we say that it's impossible to do one without the other, over here also, he tore the silk, but that's all one action because you can't get it to violate Shabbos without lifting it up and walking those 4 amas. But according to the version that says, well, you could have stopped in middle and you want to violate it. Well, over here, he doesn't have to carry it 4 amas. He could stop in middle and say, I didn't do the malacha. Tore the silk, I didn't do the malacha. Stopped after 2 amas. Okay, Gufa. When we go back to discuss Rabavin. Amar Rabavin. Rabavin said, Hazer chetz mitchilas arba l'seif arba k'shrayim b'alichasi is pater shakir tzerech hanachi. He says that he's going to be exempt when he shoots the arrow and it tears the silk on Shabbos because he's chayav for Shabbos, which is a more strict punishment than the payment for the silk. And they tore the silk before he violated Shabbos. So he says, no, it's all considered one necessary. In order to violate Shabbos, he had to have lifted it up and drew it back and released it. So that's all part of the malacha. Masav Rabbi Barabaya. Rabbi Barabaya is a question. Again, if Kesubos Shabbos, someone steals a wallet on Shabbos, a purse. Purse probably has a string, and he's chayav. Second, how did he steal it? He violated Shabbos. He should be chayav for Shabbos, not for paying the money, right? No. When he went in, he snuck into the guy's house, and he lifts up the wallet. He already stole it. When is he chayav for Shabbos? When he goes out of the house and carries it in the Rosh Hashanah. So the stealing came before the capital punishment of Shabbos. Let's say he didn't actually lift it up in the guy's house. It was attached to a string, and he pulls it along. So he never really acquired it in the guy's house. When would he acquire something through pulling? I guess only in when it takes it into his own property. Or he's pater. Why? No, he's going to acquire it through pulling, I guess, when it gets into the Rosh Hashanah. So when it crosses the border, he's going to be chayav from private domain to public domain. He did both. He acquired it because he pulled it. Yeah, I thought the Kinyan Mashiach only worked for things that are too heavy to lift, but maybe it's a heavy wallet. I don't know. So it's in Shabbos is coming together. So he's acquiring it and violating Shabbos at the same time. Why? When he lifted it up, I know he acquired it back then, but according to Rav Avin, we should say that in order to get it out, he lifted it up, and that's considered one malacha. That is the Isser Shabbos. Remember we said that in order to violate Shabbos, you have to lift it up and then carry it and then put it down. So that's exactly part of it. Here he lifted it up. I know he acquires it then, but that's the beginning of the malacha, and it's considered one malacha. The Gemara says a scenario where that wasn't the beginning of the malacha. Why? Because when he lifted it up, he was planning on hiding it in the person's own house, not carrying it. Then he changed his mind. He said, "Let me just take it."
When you lift it up, where in Rosh Hashanah?
He lifted it up in the person's private property.
Oh, okay.
But he wasn't going to steal it then. So therefore, that lifting up was not considered the akira that would begin the violation of Shabbos. No, if someone lifts this up on Shabbos. So I was planning on eating it, but then I ended up walking out. So that would be, I didn't really do an akira for the malacha. But here what happened was, he lifted it up. He wasn't going to take it out. So that's not really akira for the malacha. Then he changed his mind, and then he carries it out. Is that considered that there was no akira and he's actually exempt?
Possible, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think so. Yeah. Is he going to be chayav? Amar Rav Simon, Amar Rav Ami, Amar Rav Yechon, Mafana chafetz mizavos l'zavos v'nim machalim v'yitzian. He's pater. He's actually pater. Exactly what we're discussing. That if he didn't have intent to take it out when he lifted it up, he's actually exempt. So what are you telling me that there's Isser Shabbos here? There's no Isser Shabbos. He did half a malacha. He only did a hanacha outside without an akira inside. The akira that he did inside was not part of the malachos of Shabbos. He didn't have intent to carry it out. So the Gemara says, Leitei manas leitzia, el manas leitzia. He really lifted it up with intent to take it out. However, hachamayaskinan kisha amad, but he stopped in middle. So he stood still. When he stands still, then that's considered a hanacha. That's why they tell you when you're carrying by mistake on Shabbos, they tell you don't stop. Just keep walking. Because if you stop, then you do a hanacha and then you start the malacha again. So they tell you don't stop. Just drop it while you're walking onto something that's not a Rishus HaYachid and Rishus HaRabim, onto a mailbox or some sort. Okay. Yeah. So Amad Lamai, what does it mean he stopped? Ila Katev, if it was to adjust the load, so then Urchahu, that's not considered really stopping. That's considered like he's still going. That's part of walking. Ela B'ay Medlafa, she stopped to rest. It's a real stopping. The Gemara says, Aval Katev Mai, what would the halacha be if he stopped to just adjust the load? It says Pater. We're doing Shabbos, the Gemara for Shabbos, because we're not going to do it. It's going to be exempt. So the Gemara says, the Tani Hay Megar V'Yetze. I don't understand this Mishnah. The Gemara says, when you wanted to give me a contrast in the Mishnah, tell me one case is going to be Chayev. Why? Because he lifted it up and then he carried it out afterwards. Lifted it up, he acquired it. He carries it out, that's when he's Chayev for Shabbos. So therefore he's going to have to pay for it. However, if he would have dragged it out, then he would be exempt from the payment. So that's our contrast. Really? You have to make a contrast so extreme. I can give you a contrast in the lifting it up and carrying it out itself. Why? Because instead of saying that he dragged it out, he's going to be pater from the payment because over there the malachas came together. Let's do the same case itself. And I'll show you two details there, where one would be chayiv, one would be pater. Niflig v'nistin b'dida, divided in itself. When do we say that he's going to be exempt from the payment? That's if he stopped to. When would we say that he'd be chayiv for the payment? That's when he stopped to rest, because the lifting it up at first was acquisition of the object. It means now he has to pay for it, and then the stop to rest, and then when he starts again, that's the malacha avalakatev. But if he lifted it up and he stopped only to adjust it, then that would all be considered one malacha, and he would be exempt. Why do you have to tell me the case of dragging? Tell me the same case of lifting it up. The Gemara says, Elahamani Ben Azai. The Gemara tells us, we're following the view of Ben Azai. Ben Azai holds that walking is like standing. Ben Azai views walking like in slow motion, like those cameras that you can. Each one is a. It says every step is stopping and going. So according to Ben Azai, it's only the very last step that's going to be the one that's going to cross him over the border. Like that's the only one that was the real akira here. So if that's the case, so when he lifted it up before, he's going to acquire it. The only way that it comes together could be if he lifted it up at the last moment, but that's the same idea as dragging it out. That he dragged out, because walking would have stopped it. The damage is to the purse because it got scratched. Yeah.
So, what do you call it stealing, but there's a concept that if you do something, you know it's going to cause damages. You won't lose it if you put it from the form, so if you steal it, then you're liable for that.
Right. Right.
It's not stealing, but at the same time, you're still liable for the damages.
Yeah, but he would only be liable at the moment that it leaves the private domain. So at that moment is exactly when he's liable for Shabbos as well. Yeah. So we're saying that more than that. We're saying that he's actually stealing it at that moment. And when he steals it, he's liable for everything. It is simultaneous over there because it's because that's more strict. The Gemara says, Aval Zoyrek, but if he threw it, you see, if he threw it, what would the din be? He'd be pater. if he threw it across the domain, because over there he didn't have to walk. He didn't acquire it before this Shabbos, because he lifted it up off the ground, and then instead of walking, which each time is a hanacha, he just threw it. So if that's the case, the Gemara says niflig v'nistim b'dida, you didn't resolve the problem, because now if you look at this again, we could have divided that case into two. When do we say that he acquires it first and then he violates Shabbos? That's only when he walks, because every step is considered a stop. Aval Zayrik is potter, but if he would have thrown it, it'd be potter. The Gemara says no. You're right that Zayrik would be potter, but it wanted to teach me something about Megara v'yotze, about dragging it. Megara v'yotze it's strichale, because Sal Kedait Chamin, I could have thought ein derech hitzah bekach, that's not considered hitzah, that's not considered carrying. Kamash Malan, that it is considered carrying. The Gemara says, Ubamai, what type of purse was this? Ibaravervi, if it's so heavy that he can't, then Orchiu, then there's no Chiddush. Of course, that's considered the way you carry it. That's the way you pull it. Ibazutri, if it's so small, then Lav Orchiu, then it's not considered carrying. In a malacha, that's done an abnormal way, wouldn't be chayiv. Ela b'mitzi is talking about that it's average. It's in the middle somewhere. It's big and it's not so big. But Dafke lehecha, where did he take it out to? If he brought it to Rosh Hashanah, it's a Shabbos ikar, it's a gneveleka. It's a gneveleka. When it comes to pulling something, pulling an object, it's really what that term is that you're bringing it into your own domain. Now, in a public domain, the pulling the object, that acquisition, that doesn't work. It would only work on the side of the Rosh Hashanah, like the sidewalk, where people can sit or put their things down. Over there, when you pull it to yourself, then you're acquiring it. So when he's taking it out of the public domain from the private domain into the public domain, he's really not acquiring it there either. He's only violating Shabbos, because that acquisition doesn't work in the Rosh Hashanah. So if he took it from the person's domain into his own domain, it's a rabbinic law about that, but it's not a biblical law. It's a gneva ikka. He stole it, right? They're neighbors, right? He pulled it from this guy's yard to his yard. But ikka Shabbos leka, but he didn't violate Shabbos because he took it to another private domain. We must be talking about that he took it to the sidewalk area, where that is where you can actually acquire something. The Gemara says, come on, who does this go like? Because is Tzidei Rosh Hashanah considered Rosh Hashanah for Shabbos? Did he violate Shabbos yet? If it's like Rebbe Lezer, that it's considered a Rosh Hashanah, it's a public domain, the sidewalk area, it's a Shabbos, it's a Gneveleka. Then he didn't violate, he didn't steal it, because it's now a public domain. But he violated Shabbos because it's a public domain. But if it's like the Rabbanan that say it's not Rosh Hashanah, then it's a Gnevik, it's a Shabbos leka. Then he doesn't violate Shabbos because it's still not a public area. Really, it's like Rebbe Lezer. When does Rebbe Lezer say that it's considered like a public area? That's regarding Shabbos. Rebbe Lezer, you see, we were saying that Rosh Hashanah, the concept of Rosh Hashanah has many applications. We were saying they're all in the same boat. They're not. Rebbe Lezer said it's considered Rosh Hashanah regarding Shabbos. Why is it Rosh Hashanah for Shabbos? Sometimes the crowd is so large, they walk in that area, like sidewalk area. Avalin in Mikna, but when it comes to acquiring, Kani, that area is still good for acquiring. My taima, what's the reason? Because it's not frequent for there to be a lot of people there, and therefore that area could be considered partially your area. Like, I was standing here first or something. I put my things there. Okay, let's leave Rav Ashi's answer. We'll have to leave that for Monday, I guess. We'll learn next on Monday. Okay. Very good. Have a good Shabbos, everyone.